You may know him as the bridge to nowhere guy, but he's also famous for his deep, complicated understanding of the internet and trucks.
The internet is not something that you just dump something on. It's not a big truck. It's a series of tubes.
Indeed. Senator Ted Stevens, a man who has represented Alaska in the Senate for more than 40 years, is running for re-election. And as of tonight, he's also a convicted felon. That's a rare daily double. And it's kind of inconvenient a week before Election Day. Ted Stevens was found guilty today on 7 counts of making false statements on Senate financial documents about gifts that he received from an Alaskan oil company. The word gifts is a nice euphemism, isn't it? The government accuses him of paying only half the cost of renovating his house, doubling its size and adding upper and lower decks and a garage.
Senator Stevens committed this crime to hide from the public and from his constituents the fact that he had received hundreds of thousands of dollars of freebies.
The Senate's longest-serving Republican now faces up to 5 years in prison on each of the 7 counts. You do the math. Despite the new entry on Senator Stevens' resume, he is not required to drop his re-election bid or to resign from his job. There's no rule barring felons from serving in the United States Senate. That seems like an oversight. Senator Stevens' colleagues could vote to expel him on a 2/3 vote, but that may not be necessary. Before the guilty verdict, Ted Stevens was in a statistical dead heat with his Democratic challenger, Anchorage Mayor Mark Begich. And there aren't many voting blocs to whom felony convictions would be seen as an asset. If Begich now defeats Stevens to become the first Democratic senator from Alaska since Mike Gravel, the party would be one unlikely step closer to a supermajority of 60 Democratic senators. Among the other rare opportunities for the Democrats this year, in North Carolina, Democratic State Senator Kay Hagan is leading freshman Republican Elizabeth Dole. In Kentucky, Senate Minority Leader, the top-ranking Republican in the whole Senate, Mitch McConnell, he's only 3 points ahead of his Democratic challenger, Bruce Lunsford. And in Minnesota, former comedian turned Air America host, my colleague at Air America, turned politician, Al Franken. He has a narrow lead on the Republican incumbent, Norm Coleman. So just how many seats will the Democrats pick up in the Senate? And is Ted Stevens' seat now certainly one of them? Joining us now is David Korn, Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones Magazine. Mr. Korn, thank you very much for being here.
Good to be with you, Rachel.
Senator Stevens asked for an unusually speedy trial. He was hoping he would be exonerated in time to return to Alaska and win re-election next Tuesday. That obviously turned out to be a strategic error. An appeal will not happen before Election Day. Do you see any chance that Ted Stevens could pull out a victory next week?
You can put that down in the be careful what you ask for department. He was 1 point behind in the poll before a conviction. And I would say that in most conventional views of politics, being convicted of a felony usually is not a boost. So one has to, put the chances as even, less than they were 2 days ago. We could be in the middle of what the Political call a wave election, which sweeps Obama into office, sweeps Democrats into office. And if you're going up against a wave election, you don't want to have a big F on your forehead right at that time.
F for felon, presumably, not for fool about
Yes.
the internet. Yeah, David, is there a sense in which Ted Stevens, as such a longstanding member of the Senate, seen as such an eccentric character, is there a sense in which his conviction doesn't apply to the Republican brand, that it's not seen as another thing wrong with the Republicans this year? It's just seen as an isolated Ted Stevens problem?
Oh, that cute Ted Stevens. He's always doing things like that. I think that's a real hard sell right now. But the problem is the Republican Party is almost so demoralized at this point, and you see the infighting that you've talked about coming out of the McCain-Palin camp, that I don't think at this stage another conviction of this sort is going to create even more of a morale problem with them, or even lessen the brand. The brand is kind of at a market low, coinciding with the Dow Jones. Right now there are 12 seats that are at risk for the Senate for the Republicans, and really not a single seat at risk for the Democrats. Maybe Mary Landrieu in Louisiana you might put at risk, but no, most people don't. So they're defending 12 seats, and of those 12, counting Stevens, I would say that the Democrats have a pretty good shot at 7 of them. Then the 2 that you mentioned in North Carolina and in Kentucky, you add those 2 to those 7, and you get to the magic 60 number. So it really depends how big the wave is, because and really how I think individual senators perform on their own, because these guys are not running as Republicans. In fact, in Oregon, Gordon Smith has put up ads with him and John Kerry, Barack Obama, and Ted Kennedy. Last time I checked, all 3 were Democrats, and usually not the key to Republican electoral success.
Gordon Smith trying to sort of pass himself off.
The numbers look very bad for the Republicans right now, but getting to 60 still might be a little bit of a tough stretch for the Democrats.
We're seeing Gordon Smith try to pass himself off essentially as a Democrat. We've seen Elizabeth Dole running ads that assume that John McCain loses and make the case for her on the basis that she'd be great in the minority. I mean, to a certain extent, if you are advising a Republican senator, if you're a Republican senator looking at a potential wave election, is the only way to save yourself to run against your own party, maybe even to run against your own nominee?
Switch parties. I mean, basically, all you have is yourself, and you try to make the election a very personal thing, so that you forge a personal bond with the voters that is separate from the party and ideological and partisan splits that sometimes define elections. But, you know, the real issue here is how big the wave is, and we can't measure it, of course, until after it hits. So, but, you know, the fact that Liddy Dole and Mitch McConnell, the highest-ranking senator on the Republican side, are running scared shows you that they think there's a big wave out there.
David Korn, Washington bureau chief of Mother Jones Magazine and a blogger at Congressional Quarterly. Thanks for your time tonight, David.
My pleasure, Rachel.